pay for you to deliver something and you don't deliver it.
Why don't you do that before you take the building?
Sorry?
Why don't you do that before you take the building?
It's,
so you know, like,
why don't you
the
do
building
it?
properly?
It's an interesting.
You won't get that.
Absolutely. It's not what generally happens. The culture is built up. That it's there. It is. That's what you asked for. Blah blah blah. We know you're not going to find
Really?
snakes for 6 months, and we won't be here. What the government's saying is, don't run away just yet.
Okay.
We
You
want
think
you
that's
to be there while we
particular
test.
government buildings then? Because I don't know many commercial developers and builders who would take a building they're not happy with and they would make sure that's commissioned properly. But maybe that's something particular to the public sector.
This is particularly for the public sector. However, what we're finding in the private sector is that data has a value.
Yeah.
And there's already a number of cases documented where the developer of the project actually realised a higher price when he sold it because the quality information for maintenance and operation and had been tested was available to the buyer. So we're now seeing value in the private sector of this data, this maintenance information. People are willing to pay for that maintenance information.
I would have said it's standard practice, to be honest, in the private sector.
Sorry?
I would have said it's standard practice, to be honest.
No, it's not. That's the problem.
No, in commercial buildings. In private sector buildings, that's not standard practice because that's their asset. So
As I
it's
said, up to
government
now-
buildings that don't.
Up till now, the private sector, the developer's not really worried about it. He sells it, and the buyer then goes out and surveys it and puts together their own maintenance activity. That is a general. What I'm now saying is, if you actually do that for me before I buy it, if I'm willing to pay extra money for it. BAA used to spend £1 million a year trying to verify, when they put up a new building, that the services that were on that ground or under that ground were actually where they were supposed to be. You know, it's £1 million waste every year they're doing. So there is value now for the estate agent, whatever, whoever's selling the property, to say, and by the way, I have all of this asset information and the building's been tested. It does work and performs well. Totally agree with what you're saying. We have to change that culture that's out there at the moment. It's a big ask. I can see the doubt in your mind.
Well, to be honest, a lot of this is just really about sort of bringing together pretty much good practice in industry. That's been developing over sort of the last 15 or 20 years, and a lot of the stuff we put up and think, well, this doesn't happen. Or some of that does happen. We just don't have a tool to make it happen. But actually, there is a lot of good practice out in industry which does these things, and yeah, this is sort of the evolution of good practice, rather than we're not reinventing the wheel here.
Oh, no,
We're taking a lot of what industry does well and bringing it together. So,
no, what we're saying is there is good practice out there that nobody complies with.
well, I think a lot of people comply with it. You know, I personally have worked in organisations where we have systems that mirror this. They may not be IT, and you comply with that on behalf of your clients. So you get them a brief, you sign it. We have commissioning consultants at the end of the project to make sure that they get what they ask for. So a lot of that's existed, and that's been there for a long time.
The research, however, tells us something different.
Well,
there are
a lot of poor clients.
There are obviously projects that are delivered well. I'm not saying that they're all bad. What we're saying is, and certainly the government's recognised it, that most of the government projects are badly delivered, so I want it. And we're now seeing that in the private sector, people are picking it up for other reasons, the PFIs. I'm going to have to run this for 30 years, so I want the best information.
That's what I say, PFI is not new.
Sorry?
PFI is not new, is it? We've been doing this for a long time.
I know.
Yeah, they're working on things like NHS Lift and stuff like that. They did all of this stuff.
I can tell you that they weren't doing it properly. And
They weren't doing it properly.
Skanska is an example. If you want to do a building with them, one of their own projects, you will have to follow this methodology from now on, because Skanska special projects know that they weren't getting the right information delivered at the end of the day, and they now want it.
Yeah, I'm not being negative about it.
No.
As I say, this isn't really anything new. It's bringing together stuff rather
It's
than
nothing new.
reinventing it.
It's nothing new, which I think I said at the beginning. It's now making sure that people put it into place. We've forgotten how to do it over the last 10 or 15 years.
I think it's a reverse, to be honest. But
Sorry?
I think it's a reverse. I think people have got better at this sort of stuff. And you know,
I'll accept, I'll have to differ and agree to differ on this. Otherwise, if you're saying what you're saying is right, why is the government doing all this?
well, same reason the last one did. Because they want to save money on big government infrastructure projects. But then you do the...
Well, there is a bigger reason for
There's a
it.
saving that they say we're making 20% saving, but on what? Because you can only measure a saving if you build exactly the same thing. So if you don't build exactly the same thing because you do it better, you can't measure a saving. So it's just politics.
That's why we had to do the case studies to prove
It's a
that
good
that's
thing,
true.
by the way.
And they
I
were.
agree with that.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, the documents that are out there, the best practice that we know should be held, this is what they look like. They are all available other than that one, free of charge, but that will be free of charge by the middle of next year. On the Government Task Force website, there are links to all of the documents on the CIC website as well. Okay, they are free of charge. Why are they free of charge? Because one of the blockers that we were given in the early days on BS 1192-2007 was it cost £180. I can't afford it, which we could never quite understand because big organisations, £180 is neither here nor there, but it became a blocker. So we decided that everything would be free of charge. No excuses, you've got it there, it doesn't cost you anything, put it down, just read it. How many people have downloaded these documents? Keep your hands up. How many of you have read them from cover to cover? Couple of hands with them. No, thank goodness. Everybody, I would suggest, pick these up. I will finish there. Any other questions?
You said that UK is the main driver in Supreme, starting with the History Express. I know that Americans as well that have been working on building information modeling. I'm trying to name it management, building information management. And how far are they regarding the level 2?
The Americans.
In America.
The Americans just use the technology, by and large, the Americans use the technology out of the box. They just use the technology. Hash detection is one of their big things. They are not yet applying process. And that's the main fact. There are a couple of research projects recently in America, some PhDs, some theses that have been put out through Cambridge University, the University of Cambridge, that has actually done a lot of research in this area. And what they're finding is the management of the process is not seen as a necessary requirement. What it tends towards is the contractual condition with the IPD. So did the contract tell me what I needed to do? Usually ends up in court with a free counterpart. IPD has not yet settled down into a robust process. So the Americans are behind. What I can tell you is the UK government was the first to mandate this and to want to mandate it moving forward, and they actually won an award from America, from NIST, the National Institution, who are sponsored by the US government, to say that we are in the lead of strategic product. In the EU, as I said, France has already declared by 2017. Germany will declare in May 14th. May 14th. The EU have already put it out there that they are considering this, more than considering it, and Norway and Denmark in particular are already coming to training in this country to learn what it's all about.
So, sorry to interrupt you. An UK-based company is going to have a competitive advantage.
That's
Because
the
of
idea.
you.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
Just about the future between various building architectures and with the increasing computer power and systems that actually learn as they go along and work out the clashes and work out before there's no people involved. The interface is very simple.
Yeah.
What do you think of the future of that?
No, we hope it comes about. That's what level 3 is about. This takes us back to MIT in the 1960s. That's what they were trying to do. So we want reactive software. We don't want stick builders. We have software at the moment where the operator puts things together by choosing things off the palette. As I said, if we could just put shapes up there and then designate what those shapes are and what performance we want from them, and from a specification, you can build a 3D model for itself. That's where we want to go.
Building specification.
Building specification, everything of building regs, all have been built in. So it feeds well, it will actually stop you doing what you shouldn't be doing, be guarded by those capabilities. There's also already a thing out there called BIM for regs, which is being developed through Northumbria. So they're already looking at technologies moment they're doing it as an add-on exercise rather than a reactive exercise during the design process. But there was software in the 80s called Keops. It was a French system which actually did exactly what we wanted to do. It was ahead of its time, couldn't be sold, and therefore it disappeared off the marketplace. But it's already happened, and it will happen again. What we're expecting out of level 3 when we get there is really about how can we mine this data, how can we use these technologies out on site in the design office, whatever. It's really active software that we're really going to be applying.
Yes, so we actually interface with the person is very simple. Like
Yeah.
behind there is a computer.
It's a-
learning.
It will be about answering questions. What is it you want? I want a prison 250 on this piece of land, and it does the work for you. Well, it won't do it all, because we're sure that the architect will want to bring in something that the computer can't do, the shape or whatever. So there will be interactions still there. But no, these tools will become much more powerful and allow us as designers to do our jobs better. Give us more time to think and use the tools in that sort of innovation type activity. So,
Have the Japanese got involved in any of this?
sorry?
Have the Japanese got involved in any of this?
Not at the moment. They're just
They're
using
obviously quite good at
technology.
manufacturing.
Sorry?
They were obviously quite good at manufacturing.
Well, they have moved into the use of robotics in construction, but looking at the way in which they generate their information at the moment, it doesn't seem to be too different to the way in which people are using the technologies at the moment. If we go to Korea, to Taiwan, however, going to the universities there, they are making a big change. Already, China seems to be standing still, but I'm sure it's only a matter of time before they will kick in. Malaysia's already seen the possibilities with all of this. Certainly, New Zealand has started putting out their standards. The rebuilding of Christchurch is driving a lot of their introduction of this holistic BIM, and Australia had quite a number of infrastructure projects, particularly in New South Wales, where they are looking at this holistic approach, this collaborative approach to deliver. And the companies that are bidding are, by and large, UK companies.
How do you protect the copyright, confidential information?
What is it that needs to be copyrighted?
A subcontractor's got a specialised method of working and he doesn't want that method shared, perhaps.
That's already protected in normal activity anyway, so it's no different. The contracts don't have to change. However, in the government contract, the government takes a contract out with all of the tiers and guarantees that they're right secure. So share it, but we'll make sure that nobody steals. So that has been taken care of in the contract through the BIM protocol.
I thought technology-wise, Singapore about 10 or 15 years ago tried to enforce interoperability between software and only allow certain types of software to be used sort of relevant across all their infrastructure, etc. Do we have any learning that's been taken from that, and do we understand the developments going on there?
The interoperability at the moment is really based around the hope of the industry foundation classes as a means of interoperability. Under EU law, we're not allowed to specify what you should and should not use. However, major contracts seem to get around it by saying, here is my office, here is the equipment, here are the computers, this is the software I want to use, and employs you to operate with it. That is allowed. So you'll find that the big Crossrails, etc., that's the way they procure. They procure the operators, the users of their technology, but they cannot specify what software, when they're procuring teams, what each team will use. However, as the contract is between the client and the first tier, I would have thought it was interesting for the first tier, let's say the contractor, who is procuring his own team, he will procure people that had software that would work together and be interoperable. That's just a commercial decision to make. It will change.
So do you have any plan to introduce BIM in the university for future graduates, like Euro code? Today we are learning in the university, so some of BIM
the universities have been caught a little bit on the hop on this, because normally we would expect this type of thing to actually come out of academic research. And it was, I mean, Salford and Loughborough and places like that did a lot of work on what we now know as BIM. Certainly the development of a wonderful document about 3D to ND, which is now a laughing discussion on LinkedIn. What does D mean? Anyway, there was a lot of work done on that. But there was nothing done on process. It was all done looking at the technologies. So they've been caught out a little bit. So we have Greenwich, we have Reading. I'm a visiting professor at Reading University. We're looking at how do we train the trainers. There is a thesis out of one of the Israeli universities that has asked the question, where do we get the trainers from? How is the academic going to grab hold of this information so that they can start to teach the new graduates? And that's obviously what Christine is involved in. Reading, Liverpool, Northumbria, Middlesex, everybody is struggling with this one. What do we do? What training do we give? Unfortunately, there has been a fallback, and I believe we had the same problem here at Greenwich in the early days, that it was the vendors that were coming to tell you about 3D modelling. Nobody was talking about process. And that's the thing that the government is pushing. It's about good practice and making sure you use it. So they are catching up fast. And this is obviously part of that activity.
Okay, can we pause for breath there? I just concluded with what was my personal objective. One of my personal objectives for the evening was for you to listen to Mervyn and to totally appreciate it's about collaborative working, it's about best practice. As you said, it's about something really, really simplistic that invariably we need to relearn and to apply. It's not about some fantastic software. It's about using that software, but it's about best practice and a process. In the interest of collaborative working, you will receive a video link. The whole of this evening's presentation was filmed and will be available via YouTube. And
will be used at my trial.
Of course. There's a few out there already. And we will also upload the presentation and I will provide you with some links to all of the current documentation. So, all that remains is for us to thank Mervyn for his time.
Right opposite way.
It was worth it.